Alright guys, welcome back to another MCreator tutorial. So today what we're going to be looking at is basically the command blocks for procedures, and there's some pretty nice little tricks that I've discovered over the years that can make the command blocks a lot easier to work with. And I'll be explaining how those methods work today, as well as where to find these blocks. And then we'll be doing basically a test example with a command. So I should note that I am on 1.21.8, which is MCreator 2025.3. So if you're running these commands that we'll be using today, it might only work for 1.21.8. Though this method should work for pretty much any command on any version, just as long as that command is actually in that version, including modded commands and as well as your own commands. So it's just a matter of what the format is for those commands on the version of Minecraft that you're working with. So let's go ahead and see what this command does. Basically what I'm doing right here is I'm going to print out give the player some coal, and then what we're going to do is we're going to be adding some lore to it. And this lore is going to basically just print out some purple text at the bottom saying this coal was once a living tree. And then we're going to give ourselves one of those. So we can go ahead and do that. And we can see that we got basically just some coal here. And it's just a regular coal item. We can use it for smelting or whatever we want. But it's got some lore attached to it, basically saying this coal was once a living tree. Alright, so now that we have that basic understanding, I also have a system that we can do, just basically because I'm testing for the command from the player. So if we go ahead and type coal and then question mark, we're going to generate that same item. So we're going to be manipulating that coal text into giving us an item when we type coal every time. But we're also going to be changing up the text at the very end. So rather than living tree, we'll have like dying or living, and then tree could be a tree, bush, or animal. So let's go ahead and take a look at MCreator, and we'll start looking at where you can find these blocks. Alright, so let's go ahead and quickly take a look at the World Procedures tab, and then we'll go to Actions, and then right at the top here we have one called Execute Command, and then it's like /clear. You don't actually need to put your slash in there. It will work with a slash if you do, but we don't need it when we're formatting our commands with these blocks. The other thing we have for the world one is the X, Y, and Z. This is going to be running it at a specific location in the world. You can run it anywhere, it doesn't matter, even when it's using an entity. So basically what I'm doing is I'm printing out the text and then I'm just running it through that. So it should work just fine if we do it this way too. The other block that you can find, there's two of them, and the other one is under Entity Procedures and then Actions, and then if we scroll down a little bit, there is one called Execute Command, the command clear in the name of, and then event/target entity. So these are the two blocks that you're going to be working with. If you're working with an entity and you want to run a command in the name of that particular entity, maybe if it's something that needs to be a little bit more specific, then what you can do is you can use this command, but the other one should work in many cases. But if you run into conflict where this one might not be working or might not have the same desired output, try using the other one and it will probably work for what you need. So both blocks have a text block here. This is where you're going to be putting your command. And right now I have that command for posting the coal in here. So if we want to switch this up for the last part where it says living tree and living and tree, then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need some variables for that. And we're also going to need some other things to combine those variables. So let's start with the local variables. We need a way to store a random way or random number to cycle between these random variables. So we're going to need two number variables for this, one for the living and then one for the tree. So let's go ahead and just go num and then 0. And we're going to set a number for this one. And then we're going to go num for short for number. And then 1. And this will be for our tree variable. And then we're going to need some text blocks that we can assign these words to. So we're going to need str short for string, and we're going to go with 0 for this one. And we're going to select string, and we're going to do that for our other one, str and then 1. So this will allow us to combine those particular ones. Now, when we have this part, we're not going to worry about the command at the moment. We need to run this on server side. So basically, commands are generally run on server side. Most of the time, actually. I don't think there's a case that they would be running on client side specifically, as it's a world event. So it's always best when you're working with commands and random blocks to run those on server side. So unless you need it specifically on client side, maybe not specifically with commands, but most cases you can run things on server side and it will work on client as well. So what we want to do is we want to grab the server side block down here. Well, it's client side, we turn it to not, and that gives us a server side one. And we're going to run that specifically on server side. So the next thing that we need to do is we need a random integer. So we'll go to math, and then we'll grab our random integer, and then we're going to set this first one to 1 and 2, and then the other one is going to be 1 and 3. So this will give us a total count by 2 times 3. So in that case, we're going to get 6 different variations of what we can have for possibilities. And then what we're going to need to do is grab a if statement, and we're going to start with applying our values to the variables that we signed before. So we can delete that other one here and grab our number here, and then that we can use to test for the parts below. So let's go ahead and check if our variable 0 is equal to 1, because that's our lowest number. And if it isn't, we're only going to be having 2 values, so we can just use an else statement, and then that will always fall back onto the second one if the first condition is failed. So we can do that for the other one as well. We're going to update our variable, set that to 1, and then we're going to need an else if one, and we're going to test for 2 on this one. So once we have that, it's going to go 1, 2, or if it's not any one of those above, it's going to go 3. So let's go ahead and use a string variable now. And we're going to coordinate those numbers that we have at the end with the text that we want. So for example, this one should be living or dying. So that will be our 2 variables there. And then we can use our first variable, or the number 1, for tree. And we can combine that with bush, or have a bush for an option. And the other one would be animal. So something like that. So basically it's going to randomize these combos together. And then what we can do is we can start formatting our command here. So there's a lot to cover with this part, so I'll do my best to explain how this all works. So like in game, when you have a command, it needs to have the proper spacing and formatting. So when you're breaking your command up so you can actually use different variables and stuff, you need to make sure that it keeps to the structure of the format. So if we forget to put a space between the @p and the actual item, then the command will fail. This will happen pretty much whenever there needs to be a space between a certain format, or if you forget a bracket or something like that, then it's going to also mess up. So if you're working with this, with your commands and stuff, always make sure that you give it a good test after you've made these changes. And if it's not running the way it should, it's most likely a formatting issue. You can, after you've formatted it, you can basically just print it out to console. And that will allow you to see basically what the format is going on with the command. So we're not going to be worrying about that at the moment because I know what I need to do. But we're going to start with getting a text blocks. So create text with. And we're going to break this up into a few parts just to make it a little bit easier to work with. So for example, we're just going to copy this block here, and we're going to copy pretty much all this at the end here. So we're going to have that quote right at the end. And then we're going to add another command here. So we're going to go all the way up to the living tree part and crop that part out. Now, because there was a space right at the end here, if we delete that space, it's going to combine those two words. So it'll be the living or dying part that we have in our first variable will be combined with the A. So we always want to make sure that there's a space here. Now, if you want to make sure that it's tight, so like the text is tight, what you can do is you can add another create text blocks like this. And this also allows you to make it a little bit easier when you're formatting text and stuff like that. And you can just add a space at the end. So basically this will work all the time as long as this is basically has no spaces at the beginning and end. So the only thing to worry about when you're doing this is making sure that there isn't a space at the end of the command, or this could cause conflicts as well if that space isn't needed at the end of the command itself. So then what we're going to do is we have our first variable that we're going to be adding here. We're going to also do a space here because if we look at our command here, we have a living and then we have a space between tree. So we're going to be making sure that the tree part is going to be a separate thing. So in this case, we don't want a space between it. And this is going to be our tree, and we're going to have that just close out. So that's perfectly fine. And then we're going to add another one down below for our tail end, which is going to be where our comma is and our exclamation, and then the amount that we're going to be actually putting out. So for example, we have the exclamation, no space at the very beginning of it, our quote, and then our two brackets, and then a space, and then our command. So basically that's the same structure that we have with this one here. So once we have it all formatted like we want for our command, what we can do is we can go ahead and just copy that or delete that block, and we can put it onto here, and then we'll put that into our procedure. Now, as long as we're using the server side, we're going to stick it in there, and then we're going to put it right on our main block. So basically what's going to happen now is the command will randomize these numbers here first before it does anything. And then it's going to select a random string. So for the first and second part. And then what we're doing is we're formatting the text so we can actually use these variables randomly without needing to do it each time. So instead of having a command and randomizing the command every time, what we can do is we can just randomize those variables, and we do that through a random block up here, and that's way more compact than running multiple commands. So let's go ahead and save this, and then we'll go in game and give it a good test. All right, so I have no coal in my inventory right at the moment. So what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and just type coal, question mark. I'm gonna copy that so I don't need to keep posting it or typing it every time. And we're gonna get our first item. So this one says this coal was once a dying tree. And if we go ahead and run that again, got a different one. We have this coal was once a dying bush. So our last variable was different. And we got a new one. And this is the next one, which is this coal was once a dying animal. And we got a new one here. So this one was basically combined living and animal together. So these were our two odds. So this is this coal is once a living animal. And we're actually having quite a lot of luck with it not combining other ones. So let's see what this one says. This says this coal was once a living bush, and I'm not sure if we're gonna be, no, we weren't as lucky with that one. So we'll have to keep typing coal until we get the last combo. Sometimes it will double up the item. So it's just really a matter of probability. And we're not having that much luck. I think our luck kind of ran out. I'll just keep doing this until I get that last one, which could take a while because it's random. There we go. We got it. All right. So the other one is this coal was once a living tree. So that's the one that we originally started with, and the combo was basically that particular one. So as you can see, there's probably a lot of uses for this particular system. You can randomize coordinates, you can randomize or even set specific coordinates. Maybe you needed to reuse a script. You could use dependencies to run a command without needing to do something, so you can connect the script to the command. And again, this will work with modded variables as well, or modded commands as well as your own commands, and of course Minecraft commands. This is going to be version dependent if you're working with Minecraft commands, though I think this command that I've used is most recent on 1.21.8. So if you're trying to use this variable, it's quite possible it will not work on older versions. So if you need to use a give command, make sure that the format you have is structured properly in the version that you're working with. You can do that by just typing the command in-game before actually formatting it, and then copying that command and then bringing it into the command block itself. So hopefully you guys found this video useful. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, rate the video, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Peace out.